Don't you dare argue with my wife in her house. Ethan's roar tore through the kitchen, freezing the air around me. A fury I'd never seen before blazed in his eyes, turning my own son into a stranger. Her house? We stood in my kitchen, on the very tiles I'd chosen. In the home I'd built brick by painstaking brick, working day and night for 3 decades. The words hit me like a physical blow, leaving me breathless and unmoored in the space that was once my sanctuary. My son, my own flesh and blood, was kicking me out of my home to defend a woman he'd known barely 2 years. Across the room, Rebecca watched, arms crossed, a thin, triumphant smirk playing on her lips as Ethan humiliated me. It had started over something so utterly trivial. A few potted plants, my prized gardenias, moved without a word. When I gently asked her not to rearrange my things without permission, her eyes had hardened. This is her house now too, she'd shot back, a viper striking. I tried to explain, to tell her about the 15 years I'd nurtured those plants, the memories they held, but Ethan had exploded, as if I'd just desecrated his wife. I'm Marissa Miller, 69 years old, and that morning, I looked at the man standing before me and didn't recognize the boy whose diapers I'd changed, the picky eater I'd spoon-fed until he was 4, the feverish child I'd carried through countless long nights. He looked at me as if I were the stranger. I grew up in a small town where mothers were revered until their dying breath, where sons removed their hats and lowered their voices in their parents' presence. But here, in this unforgiving city, I watched my own son disrespect me for a woman who knew nothing of my story. It was 1977 when Andrew, God rest his soul, and I arrived in this city. 22 years old, a baby clutched in my arms. We had nothing but 2 worn suitcases and a fierce, burning hope for a better life for our son. Andrew toiled in construction from 5 a.m. until late evening while I scrubbed other people's laundry in a public laundromat. I remember the day we first saw this land, a barren, rock-strewn plot. It cost $3,000, a fortune we didn't have. "Marissa," Andrew had said, his voice thick with dreams, "we're going to build our home here." And I believed him, though it seemed impossible. For 5 years we lived in a tiny tin shack, each saved penny, a drop in an ocean. Mornings, I baked pies. Afternoons, I cleaned houses. Nights, I sewed elaborate red and green dresses for the wealthy women downtown. Every dollar went into a coffee can hidden beneath our mattress. Little Ethan was barely out of diapers when Vincent, my second son, arrived. With 2 hungry mouths, money was always scarce, but I never wavered. I rose at 4 a.m. to bake, dropped the boys at school, worked, cooked, then sewed until past midnight. Then, Andrew was gone. A workplace accident. Ethan was 15, Vincent 12. I was left alone with 2 teenagers, a half-built house and debts that seemed to climb higher than any mountain. But I never considered surrender. I worked harder than ever before, selling food at factory gates, washing laundry in the pre-dawn hours, babysitting on weekends. Anything to shield my sons from their father's absence, anything to give them an education, a life I could only dream of. Ethan was always my pride, my joy, smart, diligent, respectful. When he declared he wanted to be an engineer, I sold my sewing machine, my very livelihood, worth $1,000 to pay for his college tuition. I didn't hesitate. It was for his future. For 5 years, I ironed other people's clothes late into the night, my hands cracked, my back aching. But every time I saw Ethan immersed in his books, I knew it was worth it. The day he graduated, I wept with a joy so profound it shook me. My son, an engineer, my sacrifice paid off. Vincent, too, found his path, a computer technician earning good money. He still visits, brings flowers, asks about my day. But Ethan vanished the moment Rebecca appeared. He'd met her 2 years ago at a work party. She was 35, divorced, no children, always impeccably dressed in red dresses and high heels. From the first day he brought her home, a cold premonition settled in my gut. It wasn't that I didn't want Ethan to marry. I'd always longed to see him happy with a good woman. But Rebecca looked at my house as if it were too small, too old, too humble for her. Her eyes appraised my furniture with a faint disdain, dismissing everything I'd built with such effort as worthless. At first, it was subtle. Dinner comments, the sauce too spicy, the rice too watery, her former home's cooking different. Ethan always defended her, telling me not to be sensitive, that Rebecca was just trying to help. Then, they announced their wedding. I was happy, of course, but a strange pang coiled in my chest. Ethan was my companion, the only one left in the house since Vincent moved out. Swallowing my fears, I gave them the $3,000 I'd saved for emergencies, for my own illness. My son's happiness, I told myself, was more important. Rebecca barely thanked me, as if it were her due. After the wedding, Ethan said they'd stay in my house while they saved for their own. I welcomed them, imagining a bustling, happy family. Maybe Rebecca and I could be like mother and daughter. Maybe she'd help with the house. But from the moment they arrived as a married couple, everything shifted. My things began to disappear or reappear in strange places. My living room curtains were replaced with green ones she preferred. My cherished family photos were shunted aside for hers. My kitchen, a place of order and comfort, was reorganized. My pots moved to shelves I couldn't reach. When I raised it with Ethan, he'd simply say, "Rebecca lives here now too. She has a right to feel comfortable." My comfort, it seemed, no longer mattered. This was my house, built with my hands, my sweat. Rebecca began inviting her friends over without telling me. They'd arrive in the afternoons, recline in my living room, drink my coffee, and speak about me as if I weren't there. "Such a shame Ethan lives in such an old house," they'd coo. "Surely when they have children they'll need somewhere bigger, more modern." One afternoon I overheard her telling a friend on the phone that living with her mother-in-law was uncomfortable, that I controlled her, that I didn't let her do anything her way. The words twisted in my heart. I had done everything to make her feel welcome. Ethan started to pull away. He no longer asked about my day, no longer sat with me to watch our evening shows, no longer helped with heavy groceries. All his attention, his every effort was poured into Rebecca, into making her happy, giving her everything she wanted. For my 69th birthday, they barely wished me well. Before, Ethan had always bought a cake, brought flowers. This time, Rebecca suggested a cheap restaurant to avoid washing dishes. We ended up at a dreadful place, food like cardboard, $20 for all three of us. I began to feel invisible in my own home. Rebecca monopolized the TV, ignoring my preferences. She occupied the bathroom for hours, leaving me with cold water. The refrigerator filled with expensive foods only she ate, shrinking the space for my modest groceries. When I tried to speak to Ethan about it, he'd accuse me of exaggerating, insisting Rebecca was a hard-working woman who deserved respect. But why did her respect demand my disrespect? One night, I heard them through the thin wall of their room. Rebecca's voice, sharp and cold, complained that I was controlling, that I didn't let them live in peace, that I was always meddling. Ethan's reply was soft, dismissive. "She's just used to living alone. She'll get used to us." But I wasn't meddling. I only wanted them to respect my home, to let it still feel like mine, not a borrowed space where I was an awkward, unwanted guest. Rebecca began cooking only for herself and Ethan, telling me to eat leftovers from yesterday if I was hungry. I, who had cooked for my family for 50 years, now ate cold food in my own kitchen. Weekends, they went out without me, movies, malls, restaurants, returning late, laughing, sharing jokes while I watched television alone. Ethan and I used to go to the market on Sundays, buy plants, share breakfast at a street stand. Those days were gone. One afternoon I decided to face it directly. I told them I felt unwelcome, that we needed rules, a way to live together. Rebecca's eyes, those cold, familiar eyes, fixed on me. "If you're not comfortable, she said, her voice like ice. Perhaps you should find another place to live. Ethan said nothing. He just looked away, his silence a wound deeper than any shouted insult. My own son, abandoning me in the fight, letting his wife suggest I leave my own home. That night I cried into my pillow a silent, solitary flood that no one would ever hear. The chill of true solitude, sharp and cold, had pricked me for the first time in years. But the days that followed were meant to prove how much deeper that chill could go. Rebecca, sensing Ethan's sudden silence, saw it not as abandonment of me, but as an invitation to war. Her movements in my home became bolder, a territorial scent mark left on my life. One Tuesday, returning from the sun-drenched market with my canvas bag heavy, I found it. My cherished garden plants, the ones I had nurtured for 15 years, each with its own story etched into its leaves, its perfect spot under the sun, were gone from their usual place. They were huddled in a shadowed corner of the yard, wilting already, exiled. Rebecca emerged from the house, a cool smile playing on her lips. She needed the sunniest spot for a new table and chair she planned to buy. When I explained, my voice tight, that they would simply die there, she shrugged. If you're so worried, give them to a neighbour. Her tone suggested they were nothing more than refuse cluttering her new kingdom. Ethan, my son, sat nearby, submerged in his newspaper, a silent, damning witness to the dismantling of my life. Please, I managed, my voice barely a whisper. Don't move my things without asking. This is my house. I've spent years organising it. I understand you live here now, but we can find agreements. It was then he lowered the paper. The face that met mine was a stranger's hard, contorted by a fury I'd never seen. His eyes burned with it. He shot to his feet, fists clenched, stalking towards me. Don't you dare argue with my wife in her house, he roared, his voice thick with a venom that wasn't his own. This is her house now too, and if she wants to move the plants, she'll move them. You have no right to forbid her from anything. The words hit me like a physical blow. Her house. He meant my house. The home I had built brick by brick, financed by every drop of my sweat and every silent tear, was now, in his mind, hers. And I, the actual owner, was relegated to a guest status, without even the courtesy of an opinion. Rebecca stood just behind Ethan, arms crossed, a minute triumphant smirk playing on her lips. She had done it. She had weaponized my son against me, carving a chasm between us deep enough to swallow years of love. Ethan, I pleaded, my voice breaking, lower your voice. I am your mother. I deserve respect. We can talk like adults. But the storm in him had broken free. He ranted, calling me a stubborn old woman blind to the changes. Rebecca drifted to his side, a hand on his arm, a picture of false solace. Don't get upset, darling, she cooed, her voice sickly sweet. She's from another generation. It's hard for her to adapt. She spoke of me as if I were a petulant child, or worse, someone whose mind had begun to fray. In that instant, something profound shattered inside me. It wasn't just the plants, or Ethan's cutting words, or Rebecca's smug pity. It was the crushing weight of months, the mosaic of petty humiliations, the silent slights accumulating until I was invisible in my own home. But I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I would not give them the satisfaction of a spectacle. I met their gaze, holding it for an eternity that lasted only seconds. Then I turned and walked to my room. That night, lying in the cold expanse of my bed, a different kind of quiet settled over me. A decision, sharp and resolute. No more. I would not beg for dignity in my own house. I would not walk on eggshells for Princess Rebecca and her unwitting pawn. The next day was Friday. They had a ritual, my son and his wife. Friday nights out, home impossibly late. After their car pulled away, leaving the house in an artificial calm, I made a call I never imagined I would. The locksmith arrived quickly, a man in his 60s, his face etched with quiet understanding. I explained. He listened, nodding slowly. "Happens more than you think, Mom," he said, his voice gentle. "Children forgetting their place." For $150, he changed every lock in the house. Then I called Vincent, my younger son. The tale of Ethan's fury and Rebecca's calculated disrespect ignited a matching fire in him. "Good for you, Mom," he said, his voice tight with anger. "It's about time you drew a line." He offered his apartment, but I refused. This was my home, built with calloused hands and a full heart. I would not be the one to leave. I would not cede my ground. I went to bed early, but sleep was a distant shore. I knew what was coming. 1 in the morning, Ethan's car crunched on the gravel outside. Footsteps, the jingle of keys, a pause, more jangling, frantic now. Rebecca's voice, a confused murmur about the wrong key. Then, the escalating alarm as Ethan tried every key on his chain. I heard them move, testing windows, knocking lightly at first, then harder. Finally, a thunderous pounding on the front door. "Mom! Open the door! What's going on?" Rebecca's voice, now shrill, echoed through the night. "Why did you change the locks? This is childish, an act of revenge." I lay still, listening to their growing desperation, a strange calm washing over me. For the first time in months, I was in control. They were outside, pleading. I held the power. Ethan's knocking continued for what felt like an hour, his pleas growing softer, tinged with cold. "Mum, please, we're cold. We just want to come in and sleep. We'll talk tomorrow." I heard Rebecca's hushed whispers, urging him to call my phone, to find a hotel. But the house phone was unplugged. Eventually, the sounds faded. They were gone. To a motel, I presumed. I stayed awake until dawn, a bittersweet cocktail of sadness and quiet triumph mingling within me. Sadness for the chasm with my son, relief for the peace that had returned to my home. Saturday morning, the familiar ritual of coffee, the silent tending of my plants, the quiet cadence of house cleaning. No complaints, no watchful eyes, no hurried movements. It was the first peaceful breakfast in my own kitchen in months. Around 10, my cell phone rang. Ethan. His voice, when I answered, was raw, edged with exhaustion. "Mum, we need to talk. We're at Rebecca's friend's house, but we need our clothes, our things." "We can talk," I said, my voice steady. "But first, you owe me an apology. For yelling at me, for disrespecting me in my own home." A long silence stretched between us. Finally, a grudging, "Yes, I was wrong. We can fix things if you just open the door." But I knew Ethan's promises pliable as wet clay under Rebecca's touch. "If you want to talk," I told him, "you can come alone. Rebecca is not welcome until she apologizes for every single disrespect." "That's impossible," he shot back, a flicker of his earlier anger returning. "She's my wife. We go everywhere together. If you don't receive both of us, neither of us will come." "Then that's your decision," I replied, and hung up. He called 5 more times that Saturday. Each call grew incrementally more desperate. By the third, anger had given way to a worried edge. They needed work clothes, important documents. Wasn't I punishing them unfairly? "I'm not punishing you," I calmly corrected. "I've merely decided that only those who respect me will live in my home. If you wish to continue living here, you must choose your wife or your mother. You cannot have both any longer." The 4th call, he was begging. "Mom, please don't do this. We're family. Rebecca's crying. She doesn't understand why you're so angry. We can fix everything." It was a lie about Rebecca's tears. That woman's heart was a stone. But Ethan's desperation was real. He understood now. I was serious. The 5th call, late into the evening, brought a new tactic. "If you don't open this door, I'll call the police. It's illegal to keep us from our belongings. We have rights. We've been living there." "Call them," I said without a tremor. "The house is in my name. I pay all the bills. I have the deed. The police will side with the legal owner." He fell silent then. He knew I was right. Sunday morning passed without a single call. I wondered if he had finally accepted his fate. searching for an apartment to shelter himself and his princess. Then, around 11, I heard new voices outside. I peered through the window. Ethan stood on the sidewalk, phone to his ear, a ghost of his former self. His clothes were rumpled, his face haggard. Rebecca was nowhere in sight. He hung up, approached my door hesitantly, and knocked. Not the desperate banging of Friday night, but a soft, almost humble tap. "Mum," he said, his voice small, a fragile echo of the mischievous boy he once was. "It's me." "Can we talk?" The voice muffled by the solid oak was Ethan's. It resonated with a fragile hope I almost yearned to answer. Just for a heartbeat, I imagined flinging open the door, pulling him into a hug, letting the familiar warmth wash away the discord that had festered between us. Forgiveness, a clean slate, everything returning to the way it was before. But the image of Rebecca, triumphant behind him, her sharp gaze piercing, brought a bitter clarity. No, not again. Not ever again. I moved to the door, my hand hovering but didn't unlock it. "Where's your wife?" The question was a shield, a test, a strained pause. "She stayed at Chloe's, her friend's house. I came alone because I want to talk to you." "Mum, we need to fix this." A flicker of old indignation flared. "Did you come to apologize for yelling at me in my own house?" Another long silence, heavy with unspoken things. This was the first hurdle, a small but necessary one. "Yes, Mom," Ethan finally said, his voice raspy. "Forgive me. I was wrong to yell at you. But you also have to understand that Rebecca is my wife now, and I need you two to get along." The latch clicked. I pulled the door inward, and the sight of him hit me like a physical blow. Dark circles smudged beneath his eyes, a 2-day beard shadowed his jaw, and the clothes he wore were the same ones from Friday. He looked terrible. A pang of maternal ache, sharp and immediate, twisted in my gut. But I clamped down on it. Pity couldn't erase months of calculated slights. "Come in," I said, my voice deliberately neutral. "Let's talk in the living room." Ethan stepped inside, his shoulders hunched, and gravitated to the armchair where his father used to sit, a silent monument to a different time. He ran a weary hand over his face, a deep sigh escaping him. I watched, my own posture straight, as I took the opposite couch, waiting for him to begin. "Mum, I know things haven't been good lately. Rebecca told me that you treat her badly, that you don't accept her as part of the family, and maybe I've gotten too defensive of her." A familiar narrative. He'd started in the wrong key, still playing Rebecca's tune, still casting me as the villain. But I held my tongue, letting him spin his tale, determined to hear it all before I responded. "But Mom," he continued, his voice picking up a cautious defensiveness, "changing the locks was too much. You can't just leave us on the street like that. We're your children, your family. This is our house too." I cut him off, the air suddenly taut. "No, Ethan, this is my house. I bought it. I paid for it. I built it, brick by careful brick. You are my son, and you will always be welcome here. But there are conditions. And one of those conditions is that you respect me." "But I do respect you, Mom." Defiance tinged his tone now. "Do you?" My voice was low, cutting through his bluster. "Is yelling at me in front of your wife respecting me? Is telling me I have no right to an opinion about my own plants respecting me? Is allowing that woman to talk to me as if I were a burden respecting me?" Ethan's gaze dropped to the floor, his head bowed. I saw the struggle etched on his face, the internal war. A part of him, the son I knew, understood. But the other part, the one tethered to Rebecca, couldn't surrender. Pride, dependence, they were chains. "Rebecca respects you too, Mom. It's just that you two are very different. She comes from another family. She has different customs. You need to give her time to adapt." "Time," I echoed, the word a bitter taste. "Ethan, it's been 8 months since you married. How much time does she need to learn to say please and thank you? How much time to learn not to rearrange things without asking? My voice sharpened with each question. He stood, pacing the small space, a caged animal. Look, Mom, this is how it is. Rebecca is my wife now. I love her and I'm always going to defend her. If you can't accept that, then we have a very big problem. There it was, the thinly veiled ultimatum. He hadn't come for an apology, not truly. He'd come to deliver a warning, accept Rebecca's slights, or lose him. A cold shiver ran through me. I thought of the double shifts, the years sacrificed to pay for his education, the sleepless nights, the thousands poured into his future. All for this. Ethan, I said, my voice shockingly calm given the storm inside, I love you too. But love can't be a one-way street. If you truly love me, you also have to defend me when your wife disrespects me. Rebecca doesn't disrespect you, Mom. You're just too sensitive. The dismissive tone ignited a fresh spark of anger. He continued pacing, his movements jerky, desperate. The conversation was veering off his script. Look, I need you to give me the new keys, he blurted. Rebecca and I are going to keep living here while we save for our own apartment, but I promise we'll talk to her so she's more considerate of you. More considerate, I scoffed. Ethan, your wife suggested I leave my own house. Does that seem considerate to you? She was angry. She didn't mean it. His voice was weak, lacking conviction. Of course she meant it. And you stayed silent when she said it. That was the last straw, Ethan. My own son, leaving me alone while his wife was humiliating me. He sank back into the armchair, burying his face in his hands. I saw the tremor in his shoulders, the battle raging beneath his skin. He knew I was right, but acknowledging it meant admitting his own failure. Okay, Mom. I'll talk to Rebecca. I'll tell her to apologize to you, but give me the keys, please. We can't keep sleeping in other people's houses. No, Ethan. Forced apologies are worthless. Your wife needs to realize on her own that she has treated me badly. And you need to decide if you're going to continue allowing her to disrespect me. And in the meantime, we stay on the street. The accusation hung heavy. You are not going to be on the street. You have a good job. You earn good money. You can rent an apartment. You can stay in a hotel. You can go to her parents' house. You have options. My words were clipped, deliberate. Ethan looked up, and his face was a mask I'd never seen before. Surprise, pain, and something akin to fear. He was seeing me through new eyes, realizing I was no longer the mother who would sacrifice everything for peace. The silence stretched, and I let it, letting the new reality settle between us. Finally his voice came, smaller, almost defeated. Are you really not going to give me the keys? I'm really not going to give you the keys, but the door to this house will always be open for you, Ethan. Only for you. When you decide that your mother deserves respect and consideration. He stood, moved toward the door, then paused, turning back. Okay, Mom, if that's your decision, I respect it. But I want you to know that you're destroying our family because of your pride. No, Ethan. I met his gaze squarely. Our family began to be destroyed the day you allowed your wife to disrespect me. I'm just trying to save what's left of my dignity. He left without another word, without a goodbye. I watched from the window as he walked to his car, his shoulders slumped, defeated. I knew he was going back to Rebecca, knew she would demand every detail, knew she would be furious that I hadn't caved. I watched until the car disappeared, a tiny speck on the horizon. My heart felt splintered, but a strange, quiet sense of relief bloomed in its place. For the first time in months, I had spoken my truth, uninterrupted, without being told I was sensitive or exaggerating. Monday morning, ritual returned. Coffee, newspaper, the cool earth beneath my watering can. The house was quiet, blessedly so, devoid of Rebecca's shrill demands about the neighbours' music or her complaints about the water temperature. Around 10, my phone rang. Vincent's number. He called me, Vincent said, his voice flat. "Ethan, said you kicked them out. Is it true? Are you okay?" I laid it all out, the months of disrespect, Ethan's outburst, Sunday's conversation. Vincent listened, silent, then finally said, "You did the right thing, Mom. It's about time he learned that actions have consequences. He told me Ethan had tried to enlist him to convince me to return the keys, but he'd refused to take sides." A surge of pride warmed me. Vincent, despite being the younger brother, understood. He offered any help I might need. Ethan's silence stretched through the week. No calls, no visits, no texts. It was as if he'd vanished. A flicker of worry quickly suppressed. He was angry, yes, but he was fine. Wednesday afternoon found me in the garden watering my prize roses when Mrs. Davis, my neighbour of 15 years, approached. She asked about Ethan and Rebecca, commenting on their absence. I shared a condensed version of events, glossing over the sharper edges. Mrs. Davis listened, her expression thoughtful, then delivered an unexpected gem. "I'm so glad you finally set some boundaries with them, Marissa. That girl always struck me as very arrogant." My head snapped up. "Arrogant?" Mrs. Davis nodded. She'd heard Rebecca berating the cleaning lady multiple times, treating her like a personal servant. She recounted another incident. Rebecca had blocked her driveway, and when gently asked to move, had rudely snapped to wait 5 minutes. She had more important things to do. The stories, delivered in Mrs. Davis's quiet, observant way, confirmed it. Rebecca wasn't just disrespectful to me, she was disrespectful to everyone. Ethan, blinded by whatever spell she held him under, simply couldn't see it. Friday night, a strange number flashed on my television screen. I answered, and when I heard his voice, a knot tightened in my stomach. It was Ethan, but softer, edged with a weariness that hadn't been there on Sunday. "Mom, it's me. I'm calling from a co-worker's phone." "Why aren't you calling from your cell?" "My phone got shut off. I don't have the money to turn it back on right now." The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken defeat. The news, when it finally came, landed like a cold stone in my gut. Ethan, my meticulous son, always so careful with his finances, couldn't afford his phone. It was a stark, irrefutable sign. They were truly adrift in a financial storm. "How have you been, mihijo?" I asked, the feigned normalcy a thin veil over the dread I already felt. I heard his ragged breath, that particular deep inhalation he used to make as a boy, just before the tears would come. "Bad, Mummy. Really bad." The raw honesty in his voice scraped against my heart. "We've been in a cheap hotel for a week now. The money's gone. Rebecca had to borrow from her sister just so we could eat." He paused, a long-waited silence. "We've looked at rentals. Lots of them. But it's always the same. 3 months deposit, plus the first month's rent up front. It's like $2,500 we just don't have." Then came the question I knew was coming, the one that coiled like a snake in the pit of my stomach. "Mummy, I need a favor. Could you lend us the money for the apartment?" His voice was a plea, desperate and fragile. "I promise we'll pay you back in 6 months." The words were out before I could filter them. "Ethan, you know I don't have that kind of money saved. The $3,000 I had, I gave you for your wedding, remember?" "But you could take out a loan from the bank," he pressed, his voice edged with panic. "You have the house as collateral. Please, Mummy, we're desperate." A cold certainty settled over me. "No, Ethan, I'm not going into debt to solve a problem you two created. If you had shown me respect, you'd still be living in my house, rent-free. You chose another path." The line went silent again, stretched taut with unspoken anger. When he spoke, his voice was different, harder, laced with a resentment that chilled me to the bone. "Really, Mummy? You're going to let your own son end up on the street because of your pride?" "You're not going to end up on the street, Ethan. You have a job. You have hands. You're capable. Look for a cheaper room to rent. Find an apartment that doesn't demand a fortune up front. Talk to your boss about an advance. There are many options." But none of those options are as easy as you forgiving me and giving me the keys back, he retorted, a bitter laugh on his lips. Exactly, I countered. None are as easy, but life isn't always easy, Ethan. I worked for 30 years to build this house. Your father died when you were teenagers and I kept going. I didn't have anyone to solve my problems for me. He let out another deep sigh, and I could almost feel his frustration radiating through the phone line. Okay, Mummy, I get your message, but I want you to know Rebecca is very hurt. She says you never accepted her, that you treated her badly from day one. Ethan, I welcomed that woman into my house with open arms. I made her feel welcome. I tried to make her comfortable. If she feels rejected, it's because her own conscience is telling her she treated me badly. That's not true. Rebecca has always been respectful to you. Respectful, Ethan? Are you listening to yourself? Suggesting I leave my own house is respectful? The anger simmered in my chest, threatening to boil over. People say things they don't mean when they're angry. I get angry sometimes too, Ethan. But I would never dream of disrespecting someone in their own home. Education and respect aren't lost simply because you're angry. He didn't respond. I knew he understood deep down, but his loyalty to Rebecca had blinded him. Well, Mummy, I have to go. I just wanted you to know how we're doing. Ethan, before you hang up, I interjected, needing to carve this truth into him. The door to this house will always be open for you. You are my son, and I love you. But I will not allow anyone to disrespect me in my own home, not even your wife. If Rebecca apologizes, truly apologizes, if she acknowledges specifically what she did wrong, then we can talk. But it has to be a real apology, not just empty words to get me to open the door. A long moment of silence, then his soft murmur. He would talk to Rebecca, try to convince her. We hung up, no goodbyes, just as on Sunday. Sleep was a distant shore that night. Part of me ached for Ethan's hardship. Another part, colder, knew this was a necessary lesson. Decisions had consequences, and I wasn't there to continually shield him while he allowed disrespect to flourish. Saturday morning found me calling Vincent. He'd also heard from Ethan, a plea for money which he'd refused. It's not stinginess, Mammy, he explained, his voice calm and measured. If I solve their problem, Ethan will never learn. Sometimes you have to let people hit rock bottom to truly reflect on their mistakes. Then came the chilling addendum. Vincent, ever the discreet investigator, had inquired about Rebecca. Acquaintances at her company described her as difficult, with a reputation for arrogance and conflict. Worse, her first marriage had imploded in less than 2 years, marred by accusations from her ex-husband's family. Materialistic, manipulative. My stomach tightened. Rebecca's behavior wasn't an isolated incident. It was a pattern, one that now ensnared my son. Sunday afternoon, I was lost in my garden, the scent of jasmine heavy in the air, when a sharp knock echoed through the house. Through the window, a woman I didn't recognize, young, perhaps 30, in an elegant green dress, blonde hair, and expensive sunglasses. A small tremor went through me. When I opened the door, she removed her glasses, a smile blooming on her face, too wide, too bright. Are you Mrs. Miller? Ethan's mom? Yes, I am. How can I help you? Nice to meet you, Mom. I'm Susan, Rebecca's sister. Could we talk for a moment? I led her into the living room, a premonition of conflict already settling in the air. Susan surveyed my home, her gaze lingering, an almost imperceptible smirk playing on her lips. It was the same look I'd seen so often in Rebecca's eyes, a flicker of disdain, of superiority. Mrs. Miller, she began, her voice sugary and condescending, I've come to talk about the problem you're having with my sister and her husband. I don't have any problem, miss, I corrected, my voice steady. They're the ones with the problem. They don't know how to respect their elders. Susan's smile tightened, condescension dripping from her every word. Look, Mom, I understand it's hard when a new person joins the family, but Rebecca is a good, hard-working woman who loves Ethan very much. It's not fair you're punishing them this way. Punishing? I'm not punishing anyone. I simply decided that only people who respect me will live in my house. But Mom, they don't have money for an apartment. They're sleeping in cheap hotels, spending what little they have. Ethan is so depressed. He's lost a lot of weight. The mention of Ethan's suffering was a sharp pang, but I hardened my resolve. I wouldn't be manipulated. Your sister and my son are married adults, miss. If they don't have money, it's because they didn't manage it well. That's not my responsibility. Susan's facade crumbled. The fake smile vanished, replaced by the naked disdain I knew so well. Look, Mom, I'll be direct with you. My sister told me you're a very controlling mother-in-law, that you don't let them live in peace, that you're always meddling in their marriage. Oh, really? And what else did your sister tell you? That you're possessive of Ethan, that you don't accept he's a married man now, that you need to cut the umbilical cord. I listened, absorbing each accusation, feeling the distorted reality Rebecca had spun. In her narrative, I was the villain, she the innocent victim. Miss, I said, looking her directly in the eye, I'm going to tell you the truth of what happened. You can believe what you want. For 8 months, I welcomed your sister into my home. I treated her with respect, with affection, as if she were my own daughter. Susan cut me off with a dismissive wave of her hand, a clear signal that my version held no interest for her. Mom, I didn't come here to argue about who is right. I came to ask you to be reasonable. Ethan is your son, your flesh and blood. Are you really going to destroy that relationship over a misunderstanding? It's not a misunderstanding, I corrected, my voice unwavering. Your sister disrespected me in my own house, and my son defended her, yelling at me as if I were his enemy. Susan stood, pacing my living room, her eyes darting around. She'd clearly expected an easy conquest, an old woman to be swayed by a well-placed sob story. All right, Mom. What do you want? For Rebecca to come and beg for your forgiveness on her knees? For her to kiss your feet? What do you need to give them back the keys to the house? I want your sister to acknowledge that she treated me badly, to apologize sincerely. And I want my son to understand that I deserve respect in my own house. Susan let out a bark of humorless laughter. Mom, you're living in the past. Families are different nowadays. Daughters-in-law don't have to obey their mothers-in-law as if they were servants. I never asked your sister to obey me like a servant. I only asked her to respect me as the owner of this house. You know what, Mom? Her voice turned cold, laced with spite. I think you're jealous of my sister. Jealous because Ethan doesn't need you as much anymore. Because he has a young, beautiful wife who loves him. Her words hit an unexpected nerve, a flicker of truth that smarted. Yes, I had felt a pang of jealousy when Ethan married. Not out of malice, but a primal fear of losing him. But that didn't justify the disrespect. You might have a point, miss, I conceded, letting the admission hang in the air. Maybe I was jealous at first, but that doesn't justify your sister treating me badly in my own home. Susan sat back down, a subtle shift in her posture. Her voice softened, now laced with a manipulative sweetness. Look, Mrs. Miller. The air still vibrated with the slammed door, a phantom echo of Susan's retreat. From my window I watched her angular silhouette stalk towards her car, phone already pressed to her ear, no doubt spinning a tale of my obstinance to Rebecca. A heavy sadness settled cold and dense like the evening fog. Susan's visit confirmed what I already knew. Rebecca was a master manipulator, twisting narratives until she was the aggrieved party. But it also birthed a new, insidious pain, the vision of Ethan, suffering, a shadow of himself. My heart ached, yet my resolve hardened. To yield now, to hand them the keys without genuine change, would be a surrender of spirit. Rebecca would savor her victory, Ethan would learn that disrespect bore no consequence, and I, in my own home, would forever be a guest in my own life. That night, Vincent listened, his anger a low thrum through the phone line as I recounted Susan's cruelest threat, the notion of Ethan begging on the streets. "Mom, that woman tried to drown you in emotional blackmail," he declared, his voice sharp with indignant love. "Ethan won't die renting a room while he saves for a place. Thousands live like that." Vincent's words were a balm, rational and true, yet the insidious tendrils of guilt still tightened around my throat. Monday morning brought an unexpected call. It was Ethan's workplace, a polite young woman inquiring about his absence. A tremor of fear ran through me. Ethan, never one for irresponsibility, had simply vanished. I had no answers, only a gnawing unease. 5 years he'd built his career there, a good position, a solid income. To miss work without a word? That was a precipice. I dialed his number, again and again, but the silence stretched, unnerving. Vincent, too, had heard nothing since the previous week. At 2 o'clock my phone finally rang. It was Ethan. His voice was thick, slurred, like a man swallowed by desperation. "Mom, it's me." "Ethan, where are you? Your work called looking for you." "I'm at a bar near the hotel. Couldn't sleep all night. Rebecca and we had a bad fight." "What happened?" The words felt heavy even as I spoke them. "Susan told Rebecca about your conversation yesterday. Rebecca's furious. Says you humiliated her in front of her sister. Says she won't apologize anymore, that we need to find another solution." The clink of glasses, the muffled thrum of music bled through the line, painting a grim picture. "And what solution is that?" I asked, my voice betraying none of the cold, sick dread tightening in my stomach. "I don't know, Mom. I don't know what to do." His voice cracked. "Rebecca says if I truly love her, I need to cut you off completely. That as long as you're in my life, she'll never be happy." A long, agonizing pause. Then a raw, pleading whisper. "Mom, I need you to tell me the truth. Are you really never going to forgive her? Do you really prefer to lose me forever?" "Ethan, I don't want to lose you. You're my son. I love you more than my own life." My voice caught, a fragile thread woven with desperation. "But I cannot pretend that nothing happened. Your wife gravely disrespected me, and you defended her instead of defending your mother." "But Mom, she's my wife. It's normal for me to defend her." "And it's normal to defend your mother when someone disrespects her in her own house." A choked sob escaped him. Hearing my son weep shattered a piece of me, yet I clung to my resolve, unwavering. "Mom, I'm lost. I don't know what to do. If I choose Rebecca, I lose you. If I choose you, she'll leave me. I can't win." "Ethan, no one is asking you to choose," I countered, my voice firm despite the tremor in my soul. "The only thing I ask for is respect. If Rebecca respects me, if she acknowledges her wrongs, everything can return to normal." "But she says you never accepted her, that you treated her badly from day one. She says she has no reason to apologize because you started the problem." "Ethan, do you truly believe that? Do you believe I treated your wife badly?" The silence that followed was heavy, a battleground in his mind. I knew he was wrestling with the evidence of his own eyes against the insidious narrative Rebecca had spun. "I don't know what to believe, Mom. Rebecca tells me one thing, you tell me another. You both see the same situation in completely different ways." "Ethan, I've known you since you were born. Have you ever, in your life, seen me treat a guest badly in my house? Have I ever been rude or disrespectful to anyone?" "No, Mom. You've always been very polite to everyone." "Then why do you think I would change with your wife? What reason would I have to treat her badly when all I wanted was for you to be happy?" He wept harder now, unrestrained. "Mom, I'm scared. I'm scared of losing Rebecca, but I'm terrified of losing you. I don't know how to fix this." "Son, the solution is simple. Rebecca needs to admit she treated me badly. She doesn't need to grovel or humiliate herself. Just a sincere apology and a promise of respect. But she says she did nothing wrong, that she was just defending herself against your attacks." My attacks, Ethan. A cold fury simmered beneath my calm exterior. When did I ever attack your wife? Tell me. One time I yelled at her, said something offensive. He could not answer, for he knew the truth. In all those months, I had never raised my voice, never insulted her, never shown her anything but dignity. Mum, I'm going to talk to Rebecca again. I'm going to try to make her understand that she needs to apologize to you. But first, you need to go to work. You can't lose your job over this. Without it, you'll be in a worse place than you are now. You're right. I'm going to the office right now to apologize to my boss. Ethan, one more thing. Stop drinking. Alcohol won't solve anything. It will only create new problems. Yes, Mom, you're right. I love you. I love you too, son. Take care. As I hung up, a fragile hope flickered. For the first time in weeks, Ethan had acknowledged, however indirectly, the merit of my words. He was, at last, questioning Rebecca's distorted version of our story. Tuesday afternoon brought another unexpected call. Rebecca. Her voice, stripped bare of its usual arrogance, was laced with a nervous tremor. Mrs. Miller, it's Rebecca. Could we talk? Of course. What do you need? I kept my voice even, steeling myself for another round of manipulation. Ethan told me you're willing to forgive me if I apologize. I wanted to know exactly what you need to hear from me. Her directness caught me off guard. No preamble, no theatrics. Rebecca, I need you to specifically acknowledge how you disrespected me. I cannot accept a generic apology for misunderstandings. A long, ragged breath sounded through the phone, as if she were gathering strength for an arduous task. Okay. I acknowledged that it was wrong for me to tell you to leave your own house. That was very rude of me. What else? I pressed a whisper. It was also wrong for me to move your things without asking. It's your house, and I should have respected your way of organizing it. The quiet admission, spoken with a strange, almost childlike fragility, left me utterly speechless. That tremor in her voice. It was a discordant note. Rebecca, why this sudden candor? Last week, your sister insisted you'd done nothing wrong. Her answer was a quiet cascade of desperation. Ethan's in a really bad place, Mom. He hasn't slept in days, barely eats. He's drinking. I'm scared he'll lose his job or worse, get sick. There it was, the raw, unvarnished truth. Not an apology born of remorse, but a plea wrung from a situation she could no longer bear. A fragile hope that normalcy, any normalcy, might return. Rebecca, I countered, my voice low, a real apology comes from the heart, not from a financial panic. If this is just about making your life easier, it's worthless. A quick denial, almost a flinch. No, Mom, it's not just the money. I realize I didn't handle things well when I moved in. Okay, I didn't handle it well. I was wrong. I acknowledge I treated you with little respect, and that caused problems between you and Ethan. A thread of suspicion still held me taut. Rebecca, I need to know something else. Do you truly love my son? Of course I love him. Ethan is wonderful, hard-working, honest. I love him very much. The words tumbled out too quickly. If you love him so much, I pressed, leaning forward slightly, then why ask him to cut me off completely? Why put him in a position where he had to choose between his wife and his mother? The silence stretched, thick and uncomfortable, save for the ticking of the grandfather clock. When she finally spoke, her voice was a ghost of its former self, a small, raw whisper. Because I was jealous, ma'am. Jealous of the relationship you and Ethan share. He speaks of you with so much love, such respect. Sometimes it felt like I could never be as important to him as you are. The confession startled me, a rare, unvarnished piece of her soul. This was the first true flicker of emotional honesty from Rebecca. Rebecca, I said softly, the edge in my voice softening. A mother's love and a wife's love are different. One doesn't have to compete with the other. I never tried to keep Ethan from you. I just wanted you to respect me. A slow nod. I know, Mom. Now I see I reacted badly because of my own fears, but I want to fix things. What do I need to do for you to forgive us? I needed time. I told Rebecca that months of hurt couldn't be dissolved over the phone. If she truly meant it, she needed to come face to face without Ethan to my house. She agreed instantly, the desperation in her voice palpable enough to cross the telephone wire. After hanging up, a tremor ran through me. Part of me, the hopeful part, wanted to believe in genuine change. Another older part, sharpened by experience, remained deeply suspicious. The knock came precisely at 5. When I opened the door, Rebecca stood before me, a vibrant bouquet of red flowers clutched in her hand. But it wasn't the flowers that caught my eye. It was her face. No makeup, dark circles etched beneath her eyes. A vulnerability I had never witnessed. She was a stark contrast to the arrogant young woman who had dominated my home for 8 long months. Mrs. Miller, she began, her voice tight. I brought these as an apology. Thank you, Rebecca. Please, come in. She settled onto the familiar sofa, in the same spot where she'd always sat, but now she seemed diminished, small. Her hands were clasped tightly in her lap, her gaze fixed on the worn Persian rug, avoiding my eyes. Rebecca, I began, the air suddenly thick with unspoken things. I need the truth about something. Does Ethan know you're here? No, Mom. He's at work. I thought it best to come alone. We could speak more. Honestly, this way. Her decision at least showed a willingness to face the situation head on. On the phone, you said you'd acted badly, but I need to understand why. Did you truly believe I was treating you poorly? She sighed, a long defeated sound, then, finally, met my gaze. Mom, the truth is, my family is very different from yours. My parents divorced when I was young. My mother always told my sister and me not to trust anyone, that everyone tries to take advantage of you. Her voice grew softer, the words barely audible. When I met Ethan, and he spoke of you with such affection, I thought you'd try to control him, to keep him from me. I arrived here on the defensive, expecting a fight. And what did you find when you arrived? My question hung in the air. I found a kind lady who welcomed me, cooked for me, tried to make me feel at home, but I couldn't believe it. I thought it was an act, that deep down you hated me. Rebecca, why didn't you tell me what you were feeling? Why didn't we talk about your concerns? The question was a plea for a past that could never be. Because I was afraid, she confessed, her eyes shining with unshed tears, afraid that if I showed my insecurities, you would use them against me. I preferred to attack first, before you attacked me. A pang of pain shot through me. She had spent months tormenting herself with fears that were only reflections of her own profound insecurities. Rebecca, I never intended to hurt you. All I wanted was for us to be a happy family. I know, Mom. Now I realize all my fears were baseless, but I'd already caused so much damage, I didn't know how to fix things. And why do you want to fix them now? I asked, my voice steady, pressing gently. Her gaze drifted, then returned to mine, filled with a newfound resolve. Because I'm watching Ethan destroy himself over this. He doesn't say it, but I know he misses this house. He misses watching TV with you, telling you about his day. And I realize, if he loses his relationship with you because of me, one day, he will blame me. I don't want our marriage built on the destruction of his family. Those words hit me, a surprising surge of emotional maturity, an awareness of consequence. Rebecca, I asked, my voice barely a whisper, are you truly sorry for how you treated me? Yes, Mom, I truly am. I was rude, disrespectful, selfish. I had no right to treat you so badly in your own house. No right to ask you to leave. Her eyes brimmed, tears spilling over. They seemed genuine, untainted by manipulation. I know my apologies might sound empty after everything, but I am truly sorry. If you give me another chance, I swear I will be the daughter-in-law you deserve. Rebecca, a second chance is earned with actions, not just words, I stated, watching her carefully. If you come back to this house, how will you show me you've changed? I will respect your rules, your schedules, your way of organizing. I will ask permission before changing anything. I will help with chores without being asked. And if we disagree, if there's a problem, we will talk like adults, with respect. I won't involve Ethan in our problems. If we can't resolve something between us, we'll seek outside help. I remained silent, studying her, searching for any hint of artifice. She seemed sincere, but caution was a lesson carved deep. Rebecca, I said, the difficult question hanging in the air. If things don't work out, if we have problems again, are you willing to find another place to live without any drama? Her response was immediate, resolute. Yes, Mom. If I can't adapt to living in your house with respect, then I recognize the problem is me, and we will find another place. And Ethan, is he willing to support that decision? I haven't talked to him about this yet, but I will speak to him clearly. I'll tell him that if I disrespect you again, he doesn't have to defend me, that you are his mother and you always deserve respect. Rebecca rose, moved from the sofa, and knelt before me, taking my hands in hers. Mrs. Miller, I ask for your forgiveness from the bottom of my heart. Forgive me for being disrespectful. Forgive me for causing problems between you and Ethan. Forgive me for making you uncomfortable in your own home. Tears coursed freely down her cheeks. For the first time since I'd known her, she was utterly vulnerable, truly penitent. Please give me a second chance. I promise to be the daughter you never had. I promise to care for you, respect you, and love you as you deserve. Tears welled in my own eyes, overflowing. Months of pain, of humiliation, of feeling like a stranger in my own home. It all flowed out. Rebecca, stand up. You don't need to kneel. I helped her to her feet, and for the first time since her wedding day, I hugged her. In that embrace, I felt a genuine shift, a fragile hope that her apologies were sincere. All right, Rebecca. I'm giving you a second chance, but understand, this is the only one. If there are problems again, there won't be a third. I understand perfectly, Mom. I won't let you down. When do you want to come back? Could we come back tonight? Ethan is so depressed. I think being back home would do him so much good. Yes, you can come back tonight. But first, Ethan and I need to talk. He also needs to understand some things. Rebecca nodded. Do you want me to tell him to come now? No. It's better if you go get him and you come together. I need to talk to both of you at the same time to establish the rules for living together. She turned, walked toward the door, then paused, looking back. Mom, thank you for this opportunity. I won't waste it. After she left, I sank back into the living room sofa, the silence suddenly heavy, laden with implications. A part of me was elated, a glimmer of a solution on the horizon. Another part, the cautious, weary part, whispered that second chances are always more fragile than first. I went to the kitchen and began making coffee, enough for 3. I retrieved the oatmeal cookies I'd baked that week. If Ethan and Rebecca were truly coming home, I wanted to welcome them back as best I knew how. An hour later, the familiar crunch of Ethan's tires on the gravel. I looked out the window. They got out together, Ethan looking visibly nervous, Rebecca walking close beside him, a pillar of quiet support. When the knock came, I took a deep breath, steeling myself. This was it, the moment of truth, the moment to discover if we could truly be a family again, or if it was all just a temporary, painful illusion. I opened the door. There stood my son. His face, gaunt and shadowed, broke my heart. Ethan had lost weight, deep dark circles beneath his eyes, a neglected beard. He was a ghost of himself. Elias looked as if the last 2 weeks had etched a decade onto his face, but when his gaze found mine, a light flared in his eyes, a familiar spark from his childhood. "Mama," he choked out, his voice fracturing, and then he was in my arms, trembling. I held him tight, feeling the shuddering across his frame. My son, My baby, broken by this mess. We stood there, weeping in silent accord for what felt like an eternity. Eleanor stood framed in the doorway, a still, watchful presence. When Elias finally pulled back, I beckoned her in. "Come, let's sit. We have much to discuss." In the living room, Elias settled beside me on the sofa, pressing close as if fearing I might vanish like a dream. Eleanor took the armchair opposite, her hands clasped, a nervous tremor in her fingers, but her expression held a humility I'd never seen before. "First," I began, my voice steady despite the tremor in my own heart, "I want you both to know that I love you. Elias, you are my son, and nothing will ever change that. Eleanor, you are his wife, and so you are also part of my family." Elias squeezed my hand, his grip tight and reassuring. "Mama," he whispered, "forgive me for yelling. Forgive me for disrespecting you in your own house. There's no excuse." "I know, son," I murmured, stroking his hair, "and I forgive you. But you must understand something crucial. I will always support you, but I will never again tolerate disrespect, no matter the circumstances." Elias nodded, tears tracking clean paths through the dust of his shame. "I understand, Mama. I swear by Papa's memory, I'll never raise my voice to you again." Eleanor cleared her throat, a soft, almost imperceptible sound. "Mrs. Johansson," she began, her gaze fixed on me, "I also want to apologize, here, in front of Elias. I want him to hear what I told you this afternoon in private." She turned to Elias, but her eyes never left mine. "Elias, I treated your mother terribly. I was rude, disrespectful, selfish. I said awful things I had no right to say. Your mother never treated me badly. I was the one who acted horribly." Elias stared at her, genuinely surprised, a stark realization dawning in his eyes. He clearly hadn't anticipated such a raw confession. "Why, Eleanor? Why did you do that?" Her voice softened, tinged with a deep vulnerability. "Because I was scared, love. Scared that your mother would try to keep you from me. I come from a family where everyone hurts each other. I thought that's how all families worked." Eleanor rose, crossing the small space separating them, her movements hesitant. "But your mother showed me I was wrong. She never tried to drive us apart. All she wanted was respect in her own home, and I didn't give it to her." Elias enveloped her in a protective hug, and they wept together, a quiet storm breaking between them. Watching them, something unfurled in my chest, a fragile hope that we could mend what had been broken. "Now," I said, my voice cutting through the quiet sobs, "we need to establish some clear rules so this never happens again." Both looked at me, their attention absolute. "First rule, this is my house. I am the owner, and my decisions are respected. I'm not being controlling, I am being the owner of my own home." Both nodded in understanding. "Second rule, any changes in the house are discussed with me first. Furniture, decor, plants, organization, everything must be consulted." "Perfect, Mama," Elias assured me. "Third rule, if there's a problem between Eleanor and me, you two cannot automatically take sides. We will talk like adults and resolve conflicts with respect." Eleanor tentatively raised a hand. "Mrs. Johansson, what if I don't agree with one of your rules? How do we handle that?" "A very good question, Eleanor," I acknowledged. "If you don't agree, you tell me respectfully and we explain our viewpoints. But in the end, since it's my house, my decision is final." Eleanor nodded, a faint smile touching her lips. "That seems fair, Mom." "Fourth rule," I continued, my gaze returning to Elias. "Elias, you can never yell at me again to defend your wife. If you think I'm being unfair to Eleanor, you tell me calmly and respectfully." "You're right, Mama," he murmured, his eyes downcast. "That was my biggest mistake. And fifth rule, we all contribute to making this a happy home. Eleanor, you will help with the chores. Elias, you will continue to be the loving son you always were. And I will try to be more patient and communicative." The rules felt reasonable, palpable, but one final crucial point remained unspoken. Now, the most important thing, this second chance is the only one there will be. If we have serious problems again, we are not going through all this drama again. You will find another place to live, with no hard feelings, but with no exceptions. Elias looked at me, a flicker of fear in his eyes. Mama, truly no more chances? Elias, son, I'm 69 years old. I don't have the time or energy to be fighting in my own house. I want to live my final years in peace, surrounded by people who love and respect me. Eleanor rose and walked towards me, her posture cedar and resolute. Mrs. Johansson, you have my word of honor that you won't need to give us another chance. I will show you every day that I deserve to be in this family. I trust you, Eleanor. And then the three of us embraced. It was the first time in almost a year that I felt complete, that I felt like I had a real family again. Elias, I said, pulling back, go get your things. It's time for you to come home. That night, we shared dinner, the first time in weeks. Eleanor offered to cook, but I suggested we do it together. A good way, I said, to truly begin to know each other. As we prepared the meal, Eleanor spoke of her family, her difficult childhood, her underlying fears. I began to understand her defensiveness, not justifying her past behavior, but at least comprehending its roots. Elias, meanwhile, was more relaxed than I'd seen him in months, laughing from the kitchen table at our shared jokes. He looked as though he had rediscovered his family. After dinner, we settled into the living room, a familiar ritual of television and quiet companionship. Eleanor snuggled beside Elias, but her comments drifted towards me, including me in the conversation, drawing me into their shared comfort. Before they retired, Elias approached me. Mama, thank you for this second chance. I promise you'll never have to doubt my love and respect again. I held him close. Son, you are the most important thing in my life. Everything I did was to protect our relationship, not destroy it. Eleanor joined us, her hand gently touching mine. Mrs. Johansson, thank you for teaching me what it means to be part of a real family. I will honor this trust. I went to bed early, but sleep didn't come easily. I lay awake, replaying the loneliness of the past weeks, the pain, the feeling of rejection in my own home. But I also reflected on the lesson learned. Sometimes, one must lose something temporarily to truly value it. Elias had needed to lose the comfort of my home to understand what it meant to him. Eleanor had needed to witness his suffering to grasp that her behavior carried consequences, and I, in turn, had needed to be willing to stand alone to reclaim my dignity. The following months unfurled with a new rhythm. Eleanor kept her word, tidying without being asked, consulting me before any changes. When opinions diverged, she expressed hers respectfully and accepted my final decisions. Elias transformed back into the loving son he had always been, but with a newfound maturity. He had learned that loving his wife didn't require disrespecting his mother. 6 months later, as I tended my plants in the garden, Eleanor approached me. Mrs. Johansson, may I ask you something personal? Of course, Eleanor. How did you manage to be so strong? How did you find the courage to ask us to leave, knowing you might lose Elias forever? I considered her question. Eleanor, when you're a single mother raising 2 sons, you learn that sometimes you have to make difficult decisions to protect what's most important. And what was most important to you? My dignity. Because without dignity, nothing else matters. I'd rather be alone and respected than accompanied and humiliated. Eleanor nodded, a thoughtful light in her eyes. Mrs. Johansson, thank you for teaching me that. Now I understand why Elias loves you so much. That afternoon, sipping coffee in my garden, a profound peace settled over me. I had regained my family, but more importantly, I had reclaimed the respect within my own home. Because sometimes, the only way to win is to be willing to lose. And I had been willing to lose everything so I would not lose the most valuable thing I possess, my dignity. My house was truly my house again, and for the first time in a long time, it truly felt like a home.